Hey everybody, my name's Dave from VibeWire. Today I wanted to talk to you about a workflow that I've been using to make something of my deep research reports. I've been doing a lot of deep research across different LLM clients recently, and I've been looking for ways to turn them into something that I can use, rather than just reading them. What are some other ways that I can kind of consume them in my off time to be able to study better, to be able to go deep into a topic that I'm doing this deep research on, and kind of retain it better, retain that information, and maybe present it in a way that might be interesting to others. So what I've been playing around with is this workflow for taking a deep research report and turning it into a video like this.
Welcome to the Software Engineering Music Deep Dive into Python. Whether you're new to the world of Python or a seasoned developer, look.
And so you can see there's a couple things going on there. There's the AI voice. There's obviously, this was generated by a deep research report that I did. We haven't quite gotten into the details of that yet. It's more just the intro, but that's what we'll get into. This is a 37-minute long video that goes deep into Python, the Python object model. So there's an image that I started with from Midjourney. I created the video in VO3. I took the audio, created the audio from ElevenLabs. And I kind of compiled all the different deep research from a couple of different LLM clients, took what I read through it all, looked at the sources, and kind of took what I liked best and kind of put it together into something that I thought would be, useful for me and hopefully for other people. There's also some music in here that I created from Suno. And so I think this is a pretty interesting workflow. I do think that, this takes a lot of work to do right now, but I could see a platform that kind of synthesizes this information. There's a lot of really useful things that you can get from deep research. And I think being able to present learning and new information in new ways is something that's going to be one of the things that AI is going to enable for us, is to experience learning in new and exciting, fun ways. So this is just one way that I thought was fun and entertains me. And, maybe you'll find something interesting to do with it yourself. And so I just kind of wanted to walk you through the process, some of the hiccups that I ran into, some of the issues that I worked around, and what worked best for me, what the different tools are that I'm using. And so hopefully you'll find that useful. So let's go ahead and get started. And I thought the best place to start would be with the research itself. So I have these, I use the same prompt across all these, all the different LLMs that I use. So I use Grok 4 and Grok 3, which we'll talk about in a second. Gemini, the latest Gemini 2.5, ChatGPT using O3, and Claude using latest Opus model. And I use the same prompt across all the different foundational models. And it's the same prompt. Sorry if this is an interesting topic for you. It's something that I've been diving into a lot recently, which is Python. You should be able to adapt this to whatever. You'll see once we get into the video creation that it has really nothing to do with Python. So you can feel free to adapt this and use it on your own. This is just the prompt that I use, and I use it the same across the different clients so we can kind of see what the different outputs were. So this is, at the high level, I have an upcoming interview for Python programming. I wanted to dive deep in the Python minutia about the global interpreter lock and concurrency. So the first thing I did with Grok 4, Grok used to have a button. I could have sworn there used to be a button here. If I go and create a new chat here, I thought there was a deep research button down here. That seems to have gone away recently since the release of Grok 4. I don't know if maybe it happened before then, but with Grok 4, I don't actually see a way to do deep research. The research it did, this was the one. It took about 40 seconds, and it did look at a lot of different sources, 30 different web pages. So, and it did it pretty quick. I think this is a pretty good overview. Nothing to complain about here, really. It did even go as far as, mentioning Python 3.13, which is relatively new, and PEP 703. So there's some this was relatively good, but I did want to get into the deep research thing. So I went back to Grok 3. And the interesting thing, you still don't have a research option there. But after you do the first query, so I gave it my first query, we scroll back up, same query. And then once it, kind of finished the research for this portion, it gave me however many sources it had looked at. And then it said, there was a button that it gave me that said, would you like to do deeper research, basically? And I said, yes. Then it thought again. That time it thought longer, about 69 seconds there. And I think it actually gave me that same prompt again later down here. Let's see. Yeah. So that time I looked at about 30 web pages. Then it asked me again, do you want to go deeper? And I said, yeah. And then it thought for another 134 seconds. And at this point it got, there's a lot more information here, I feel like, the third time in, but it was a little bit annoying that I had to keep prompting it each time. And this is kind of funny, 666 milliseconds and 69 seconds. So of course, Grok, thanks for 69 seconds. So yeah, relatively good. Is a little bit annoying having to keep prompting it that I want it to go longer. They must be doing that to save costs in some way. Is what I would assume. Moving on to Gemini here. Let me clean up a little bit and go back. So this had a couple of snafus. I'll talk about that in a second. But so the first time I did the research, this is actually the second version of it, because the first time I did it, got completely confused and wiped, and it ended up giving me the equation for the volume of a sphere for some reason, and it just completely wiped my old research. So let me see if that's still, yeah. So you can see my Python interview prep GIL and concurrency is now the volume of a sphere. So I don't know if I got somebody else's prompt in here or what happened there, but my old prompt research went away completely. It's disappeared, and now I just have this volume of a sphere. So I had to do it again, and that time it worked. There's a couple more issues there, but I think Gemini actually, I liked it the most. I think it did the best as far as the actual research, and which makes sense because I think they've been at this the longest. The first time I ever used a deep research tool was with Gemini 1.0, I think, or whatever, whenever they introduced it. And just, I like the narrative form of this a lot better. It translates better to what I want to do with it. I feel like it also looked at a good number of sources. It didn't pull in the most up-to-date information the first time I did this. Let's see if it fixed it the second time, because it didn't mention Python 3.13 at all. Okay, yeah, no, it did. So I got that. It's got that you can use this build time flag to disable the GIL. So that is good. I believe the first time I did that, I had to actually ask it to go in and look for that. But it found the docs right here, which is great. Okay, so it doesn't show us the total number of sources read, but I think that's totally fine. I actually like the way they break it out here better, and that it shows, here's what it read, here's what was actually used in the report that was generated, and then here's a bunch of sources that it looked at but didn't actually use, and then it's train of thought there. So moving on to ChatGPT. Here was the deep research. One thing I really like about ChatGPT's deep research is how it always, asks you follow-up questions. It's something you have to be aware of, so you don't all right, I'm starting my deep research and now navigate to another tab and then come back an hour later and it hasn't even started yet. So as long as you remember that you have to answer these questions, that's always good. It only asks you in 03. I don't think it asks you in 4.0. But these were really good, kind of helpful questions to kind of guide the research a little bit better, I think. And the one problem I have with this is I want to copy all this information over and have it readable. And so when you copy all of this text, you get the links right there in the text, which is difficult to kind of parse out. You kind of either have to write a parser to remove all the links, which could be dangerous because there might be a reference in there that isn't an actual link that you want to keep in the content. If you do, where is it? download, you can download it as a PDF, and then it's at that point the links are a little bit different, I believe. Yeah, so then it turns them into these numbers, which are a little bit easier to parse out, I guess. But they're always going to be kind of embedded in there. Okay, now moving over to Claude. Did a deep research with Claude Opus 4. This was by far, if we just look at the total number of sources, the most exhaustive, if I remember right. Yeah, 271 sources right here. And you can see the breakdown of where it got the sources from. Yeah, I don't know. That's one reason why I like Gemini's breakdown, is because it actually shows, oh, I actually use these in your report, whereas it looked at 271 sources, but how many did it actually use? I don't actually know, without like combing through everything. And I guess you could also just look at count the number of references here. And see if it used 271, which I haven't done, but there are a lot of references. You can see that it used them heavily. The way that it breaks out the content, I think this was a very good, it also caught the latest information about the GIL was in here, release 3.14, release in June 2025. So yeah, it has the most up-to-date information. There's some really good breakdown here across 3.13 and 3.14. Lots of links. This has the same issue as well, with links being in line here, and so parsing this out for audio content is a little bit difficult, but they do make it a little bit easier in that you can actually download this directly as Markdown, and when you download as Markdown, it'll strip out the links and things, so that helps a lot. And then just the Markdown formatting overall is very useful for doing other things with it. Overall, I think I like the narrative style of Gemini out of all the ones I looked at the best, just the way that it presented the information in kind of a report form. But Claude is definitely, pretty neck and neck, I'd say, with Gemini. And I took the best parts of each one and compiling the video that we'll see in a second. All right, so on to step 2 in our workflow here. After I completed all the deep research, I pulled it into Google Docs just so I could split it out, because I do want to turn this into a series. And so I've actually done multiple deep research across different topics and obviously different foundational models. So I compiled it here. This is kind of what I used as the first editing, just so I could kind of like easily copy things in and out and just grab the pieces that I like the best, that I thought explained the topic well and were narratively consistent, and just do some organization there. So that was step 1. Once I had one particular, this is about 30 minutes, almost 40 minutes of content here. And so the next step from here, so if you look at some of the information, you'll see this doesn't really translate too well to being read by, in our next step here, we're going to pull this over to ElevenLabs. You can see there's lots of places here where it's like __new, which you would actually in Python pronounce as dundernew. And there's that's just one example, but there's a lot of things like that I wanted to clean up, and I didn't want to have to go through and individually do that. So I pulled this over in the cursor, and so you can see I've already kind of mostly done the cleanup here. But so what I did, I ended up using just the cursor agent, and I'll share this prompt if anybody's interested. I think it'd be pretty interesting to train a model to convert technical terms into pronounceable content. That might be interesting, but I just have this prompt that I just gave it a couple of examples of things that I wanted to do, like f_back should be read, actually pronounced f_back, because when you pull this into ElevenLabs, it's just going to say f back. Let's see, expression for item in iterable, which list comprehension, I just wanted this to be pronounced, should be open bracket for item in iterable, close bracket, things like that. Append should be the append method. CLS should be CLS. This is the way that ElevenLabs will actually pronounce this. Otherwise, it'll say something like close, which is not going to be good to listen to. That's one. And my biggest pet peeve is when listening to audiobook content, when people don't pronounce things right. Even if it's an actual speaker, a lot of time you'll be listening to technical audiobooks and you're just like, why are you pronouncing it like that? So I didn't want my content to have that same problem. Also with the less than and greater than signs, had some updates for that. Pronouncing method calls mycar.color. I made that explicit. And then I still had to kind of read through all the content and make sure, this didn't get 100% of the things, but it definitely helped a lot, to kind of clean this up. So you wouldn't have to use Cursor for this. You could pull this on the ChatGPT directly or, your favorite client. I just felt, this was the easiest for me to do and it worked really well. So that's basically the next step that I took to just kind of clean up the content before we pull it over into ElevenLabs. And so we'll look at that next. Okay, so this is ElevenLabs. If you haven't used it before, it's just a platform for text-to-speech. You can do anything from audiobooks to podcasts to they even do sound effects. They have an SDK, so you can do things like conversational AI using their voices. So they also have a really great voice library here. So I think you can also even use your own voice, if I remember. Yeah, create or clone a voice. So you can create, if you just, you don't want to lose your voice and you've got a lot of content to speak through, you could use, clone your own voice. But I really like some of the ones that they have by default here. And so you can just click on any of these just to hear what they sound like.
It sits looking over harbor and city on silent haunches, and then moves on.
Looks like they also have some Hollywood actors' voices, which is kind of fun. I haven't actually played with these.
For the good old American life, for the money, for the glory, and for the fun.
I don't know. Okay, Burt Reynolds trademarked. I don't actually recognize any of these others. So that's something fun to play around with. It is definitely fun just to see what they have available. Once you're ready, and sound effects too, obviously, just being able to just type a sound like a cat meowing. No, it didn't work. Let's try that again. Right, shortening this up. All right, well, it looks like they're having some issues right now, but I have used it before. It works. It's pretty fun. Oh, here, let's see. Maybe this will work better. I haven't actually played with this before. Okay. Oh, here's our animal here. There we go. So we can finally get the cat. Okay. So the way I've been using it, though, is they have this studio, and so you can see the one I did. So this is the studio, and this is where you can basically this is where I took all of that content that we looked at over in Google Docs and pasted that all in here. And so you can see, if I play this, maybe it'll show me the total time. Go to the end. So it's only showing me paragraph by paragraph right now, which is fine because this is the way generally it works. You should be able to play through the whole thing. There's a couple weird issues with it, but generally it works really well, and it does break things down by paragraph, so you don't get charged if you need to say make a change somewhere at the end. It's not going to charge you to generate all the way up until there. It'll just regenerate the couple of sentences or the paragraph, however you have it set up. So you're only getting charged for regenerating the text for that specific chunk of content, which makes it a lot better to save some cash. So this is what I used. I select a voice here. This is funny that this always comes up, that they must have some issues with explicit content, because every time you generate anything, this particular voice I chose, which is just a standard British storyteller, it's constantly telling me, watch out. You might get banned for if you use this in the wrong way. So I don't know what people are doing with this, but hopefully I don't get banned for any Python technical content. But you can see here some of the updates that I made. If we read this, you'll see it'll actually, read Python virtual machine, the out as PVM. So
Bytecode is the intermediate language of the PVM. It is a low level, but not machine.
So that's just some of the updates that I made in Cursor to make sure that this content is read correctly and works. And sometimes I don't catch it all. I'm listening back to it, and then I have to go back in and make changes. But because of the way that it charges you for updates, that's why I really like this tool. And I really like the voices that it comes with. They sound very natural. They're not hard to listen to. So yeah, this is a good option. And then, if you want to add some additional stuff in here, like a pause or sound effects that you can put like directly after here, embed them directly in the content. That's very nice. You can also, if it's not pronouncing something the way that you like, you can actually go in and edit the way that it pronounces it. I think you can even direct speech with your own voice. So there's a lot of options here to make sure that actually sounds natural and sounds comfortable to listen to and isn't going to be turning everyone off. So that's and then once you're ready to generate it, I think I've already run this export, so it'll just export the audio file I've already updated. If you do make changes, like if I were to delete this, then you can see that gray line. The black line goes away and gets replaced by the gray line, and when I go to export it, it's going to say, so this will cost 312 credits to generate. So it'll reuse all the content it's generated up until that point, and it'll just regenerate this particular portion that I edited, which is really nice. All right, so that's ElevenLabs. All right, so we look back over here at the video. You'll see that the video has this cabin. It's obviously animated. So I wanted to get the feel of, if you ever watched any of the kind of YouTube cozy coding and coffee or study time videos, is sort of the feel I wanted to get from this. So if we jump forward a little bit, you'll see
the fundamental concepts that make programming languages tick.
There's a dog walking in.
Content like this, where we go beyond surface level.
So you notice it's a little bit jumpy. So really, what I was going for was, like I said, the kind of cozy YouTube videos where it's kind of pixel graphics. I wanted to do kind of an upgraded version of that, where in the pixel graphic style, they might animate one particular portion of the screen where there's maybe like a coffee cup and some steam rising, and it's just kind of this comfortable thing to have on in the background while you're doing something else and it's playing music. The content that I've created here, I don't necessarily think people are staring. I wouldn't expect people to be staring at the screen, most likely. It's more for like listening while you're doing something else, or just relaxing and you want to kind of do something useful with your time and still be thinking about something deep, like this Python deep dive. But I still wanted to give something kind of fun, if you did pull up your screen for a second to take a look and see what's happening. And if you do pay attention, then you'll see all these like fun little Easter eggs I've added, like the dog walking through. But for the most part, if you just click in any area,
Python
it's just kind of,
these roles
the background is kind of slightly moving, very slowly, and that's like the majority of the video. And so I'll kind of show you how I did that with VO3, and I actually improved on this a little bit. So I'll show you some of the tricks that I learned to kind of improve that. But just to start with, I started with Midjourney with a particular image, and I had a particular kind of style in mind, and it took me a while to get there. So you can see some of the early prompts that I had where I was trying to come up with that kind of particular feel, that kind of anime video game sort of style feel. And it took a while to get there, just playing with different parameters. And if we scroll up a bit more, see, I started to like this a bit better. Had that particular, and I wanted to have this kind of techno-futurist retro feel to it, where it's kind of comfy with, you've got this cottage, but you also have like the rockets in the background and maybe this sort of space feel, where maybe you're not on Earth, maybe you're on another planet. And so there's kind of this planet in the background. So this is where I started to really like some of the things it was coming up with. Let's see if, yeah, so here's the one I ultimately chose just because it looked most comfy. But there were a lot of good options here, and it actually did end up going pretty well. Let's see. So the first animations, you can see this is the Midjourney animation. I only did one of these because I didn't really like what it came up with. Overall, I think it's fine. I just didn't really like this doesn't really look like a chimney to me. So I thought it was a little bit weird to have smoke coming out of it. So I ended up ultimately animating that in VO3, but that's where the original image came from. So I grabbed that original image. And if we switch over to Flow here, you'll see some of the, animations. And so this is the one where, so this, let's see if this is the actual one. So you can see this one, the rocket just kind of hovers there, even though I do like the zoom into the door better on this. Let's see which one I actually went with. I think it was probably this one. So you can see the rocket is taking off. We zoom into the door. Oh, and then it opens the door into nothing. So couldn't go with that one. Let's see, maybe it was this one. Yeah. So I couldn't actually, I did a little bit more prompting to try to get it to actually go in the door, but none of that ever really, that just jump cut right there didn't really work out. So Flow has this really annoying aspect to it right now, which is you can generate anything in VO3, which is the newer model, but as soon as you want, you can do 6 seconds, I believe, at the most of that. And then you have to transition to VO2, which is why you get these really weird transitions where like it just doesn't make sense from there. I mean, it did keep the continuity of the rocket in the background, which I definitely appreciate, but it's, opening the door to nothing when we can obviously see inside that there is a cottage in there. It's so close, but yet so far with so many of these, video models. I'm sure we're going to get to the point where that's not going to be an issue anymore, but I ended up just going with a jump cut. So you go up to the door and now you're inside. A couple of tricks that I used here in order to make this content last longer, because obviously I have it's like a 37-minute video. So how are you going to extend out a 6-second clip into 37 minutes? For that, I ended up just creating a bunch of these different videos that I could take and then splice together in a way that would work. And you can see, obviously, it didn't always work out because of the way that that things jumped when we saw earlier. That's partly because of the fact that, as much as I tried, I could not get it to not move things. So ideally what I would like would be for it to just stay stationary, hardly any movement, and then be able to say, here's one thing that I want to happen. This particular image, I probably just chose the wrong image for this because you can see the clouds are moving. So even though I say stationary video where clouds move very slowly in the background, the clouds are just kind of flying by, and the video is not staying stationary. So the camera always wants to move. There are, if you select another model, for example, like VO2, oh, it's because it's text to video. Okay. So select frame the video. And so even though I'm on VO3, it'll still let me select static. So that all seems to work so far, right? And then we select this and we just say, stationary, whatever. It doesn't even matter what I type because this isn't going to work. This feature isn't supported on VO3, switch to VO2. So if you want to use a higher end model, you really just have to yell at it to not move the camera. And 1 out of 10 times it'll actually not move the camera. The camera you can kind of get around. I'll show you a trick for that. It's more the clouds that really screwed me over on this, because every video you can see the clouds are in a slightly different position, even though I started with the same image. And not only are the clouds in a different position at the start, but at the end of it, they're in a different position. So it really gets very jumpy. And so I did a kind of fade transition each time to try to keep the scene cohesive as possible. But for this one, it didn't really work out. But as far as cutting the whole video together, and extending it, basically what I did was I took one video that was as stationary as possible and maybe did a couple of things like moving to the left or the right, and then just reversed the clips, which I'll show you in a second, to kind of pull them all together, so they look like, you know, the camera's moving in and then the camera's moving out. Once again, that doesn't really work that well when you have clouds moving though, so you really had to find one. So here's one: the camera stays still, the cloud stays still. And yeah, the camera is still zooming in a little bit. The clouds are definitely not staying still. So that didn't work great here. And the next one I'll show you, which doesn't have any clouds moving, it worked a lot better. What I wanted to do, the other important thing I wanted to show here was, in order to kind of make these all fit together, because I can't really go beyond that 6 second or whatever 8 second time limit on some of these. This one went to 7. I really, if there was a particular action that was happening on the scene, it had to happen within that 7 seconds. And so I had to basically keep generating until I could actually, there were issues where, for example, I wanted the dog to kind of walk in slowly and then walk off screen. In some cases it would do it. In some cases it would just kind of like walk in and then just sit there. And obviously you can't really continue from there with VO2. It just didn't really work. So let me see if I can find an example of that. Let's see if this one worked. So here's a cat. A cat walks across the balcony and disappears. So that one actually did fully disappear, which is awesome. I probably used that one. Try this one. Deer walks by the window. Yeah, and so that one I couldn't use because you can see that it would just be this where, you know, if I were to go to another clip from here, the deer has just disappeared. I believe this one it actually walks all the way through. So being able to do more than one generation at a time, you'll usually get, if you do 2, you'll usually get one that works. So you can choose between 1 and up to 4 generations each time. So, and they cost, if you're using VO3 Fast, it's actually only 10 credits, which is really good. If you're doing VO3 Quality, wow, did they just lower this? It used to be 100 credits. Is that real? I don't know if it's just not updating right, but why would it be the same number of credits for VO2 as it is for VO3 Quality? So, I don't know. Hopefully that's true. I don't know if that's an update. They just made it just now, or it's just not updating correctly. I don't really want to test it right now. I need my credits. So once we have all these, you can download them, and then that's when I pulled it in the CapCut. All right, so now we're over in CapCut. I've pulled in all of these videos that I generated from one of the newer videos that I'm working on, and from here, I thought it would be useful to show you how you can kind of extend some of those videos that we looked at earlier that were only 6 seconds. So a couple of tricks here. Because this works kind of relatively well for the style of video that I'm doing, because this is supposed to be a more kind of cozy, slow-moving style, and people aren't necessarily, there's no information on the screen. It's more of just what's the vibe of the content that's being discussed.
Today
I slowed down the here, let me turn the audio down. So I slowed down the speed of the video to half, so that'll double the time. And so my 6-second clips are now 12-second clips. So you can see it, and it still looks nice and smooth. CapCut has some tools to allow you, once you cut the speed of the video, to kind of smooth out the transition. It just takes a little bit of post-processing. And then the second trick is, once you get to the end of the clip, you can just take that same clip and reverse it, throw it on the end here, and you have like one continuous moving out, and then we're moving back. And so for the style of video here, where the video content isn't really that important, this works really well, and you can just kind of have this kind of nice smooth, and now we're moving to the left, just this kind of smooth, comfortable kind of feel to the video as we're just kind of looking around the room as we're listening to the narrator speak. So this works really well. And then I threw in some, if you are happening to be watching it, I threw in some additional kind of fun things that happen. Like there's this little alien bird that flies by, and a couple of additional things that I'm going to add in here. And you can see, luckily, it kind of flew off screen there. And so you can see it's kind of coming together here. We've kind of put all these clips together, and the export from ElevenLabs is right here. So you can see, like, if we start the video from the beginning.
Welcome back to the Software Engineering Music Deep Dive into Python. Whether you're a seasoned Python developer ready to peek behind the curtain, or an ambitious programmer preparing for those challenging technical interviews where deep language knowledge makes all the difference, today's...
And so one funny aspect to this is we're on an alien world, so maybe waterfalls flow backwards here. I don't know. But I had to start from inside the cave here in our cave bedroom. I wanted it to kind of fly in. And the easiest way to do that was to fly out and then reverse the video, which is why the waterfall ends up going backwards, which is, I don't, nobody's going to not listen to a Python thing because they're upset about the direction of the water flow. Maybe that upsets you and you can do it differently for your video. But I just wanted something to kind of fly in. I didn't want to start in the bedroom. So I did it this way. And I like that look. So there's another trick there. It would probably work better if I didn't have a waterfall. If it was just the edge of the mountain that it flew by, you wouldn't even notice that it was reversed, but whatever. So we've got our audio narrator content here, as you could hear. And one thing I want to add on top of that is just this kind of low music kind of soundtrack. That's not gonna, I'll probably do 2 different versions of it because a lot of people hate hearing any type of music if they're trying to listen to somebody speak, and then some people really enjoy that. I kind of enjoy it. Maybe it's the ADHD, but I do like having some nice underlying music while somebody's talking. Especially if the content is somewhat boring. I don't necessarily think Python internals are boring, but it can be a nice little addition to have. So I'll show you how to do that with Suno next. All right, so here's Suno. It's definitely the best platform that I've found so far to create music. I've been doing it since the first version came out, and it's only gotten better. It's to this point, it's just practically indistinguishable, depending on the type of music that you're trying to create. What I ended up doing, because I needed a lot of music for this, ended up using, when you go to create, you can actually choose whether or not you want lyrics or not, or if you just want it, just instrumental without lyrics. And then from there, all you need to do really is choose the style. This is a new thing they added recently where you can adjust the weirdness and style influence, sort of the way that you would with Midjourney has different options like this. The song title can influence things a little bit, I think, but I usually just leave it alone. And you can see for each one of these that I've generated so far, for the type of music that I want that's just going to be unobtrusive, just kind of in the background, I've just found that this ambient dub bedroom pop works really well. And so all you have to do is add in that style and create. And for the quality of the music, it's pretty amazing how fast it's able to generate it. But that should be ready, and yeah, see, it's already done. So if we listen to that. The other ones, it does 2 each time. So with this music, you don't have to worry about any. I've bought music before and still been flagged by YouTube and told that I couldn't use it. I don't know if the particular where I bought it from didn't have access to the copyright, or why that happened. But if you generate music yourself, then you don't have to worry about any of those problems whatsoever. It's your own music. It's your own video. You do have to technically be, I believe if you look in the terms of service of Suno, you don't actually have a license to it if you don't pay for premium. I don't know how they would actually strike your video on YouTube for using it. But it's just something you should be aware of. It's pretty cheap. If you just want to go through and just generate a bunch of music for background like I did, you should be able to do that in one shot, basically. So I just generated a ton of this, long enough for my 40-minute videos, downloaded all of that, and then pulled that into CapCut. So let's take a look at that next. All right, so I just downloaded all those audio files, pulled that over in the CapCut. Now we have a bunch of music for our video. We can just go ahead and select all of these. And let's go back to the beginning of the video. And I probably only need like this many. Go right there. And then so here we can just easily adjust the volume. Obviously we don't want the volume of the music to be as loud as who's talking.
Welcome back to the Software Engineering Music Deep Dive into Python. Whether you're a seasoned Python...
And there's all the pieces together. We've got the video, we've got the narrator, and we also have our underlying music track. If we zoom out here, you'll see all the different, so we have all the different audio tracks. Haven't really... they're all about the same. They're kind of all just that ambient music style. So I don't even really care which one is playing at what point. If you want to go in and adjust that, you can definitely do that for your video. And that just kind of pulls the whole thing together a bit. So I only turned down the one video in order to select them all. Just bring down, I can't do that. And really the better way to do this actually would be to select them and then from this editor up here, so we can make sure they all have the same. There you go. That moves them all at the same time. And so that way you don't have like it's slightly louder music in one section than another. Same with the one issue with ElevenLabs that it's still kind of audible, but didn't notice it as much this time. You used to hear a really large difference in the sound and the volume of the narrator while it was speaking. It would, like, one word would be really low and then it would slowly start to come back up. You can just kind of use the normalized loudness or enhanced voice options here in CapCut to fix that issue, just to normalize everything so your listeners aren't constantly trying to turn up the volume to hear the narrator and then have it be extremely loud in another part. So you can kind of fix all that up in CapCut as well. There's a ton more things you might want to do in here before you actually kind of release the video. I'm definitely going to be cleaning this up a lot. There's a lot of transitions and options that I want to add in here. So there's a lot of different, I want to add in a cover. This isn't necessarily a CapCut tutorial though, so there's better videos to see all of that. Just kind of wanted to show you all the different pieces that I work through, from the deep research to the editing, to the video creation and image and video creation for the final product here, and kind of how I put it all together. So hopefully that was useful to you. If you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe so that I can do some more. And if there's any part of this that you would have done differently or you want to tell me about, please tell me, because I'm a little bit new to the editing side of this, and I'm sure I'm doing a lot of things wrong that could be done a lot better. So definitely tell me in the comments, and I look forward to seeing you all soon. Thanks.